So first, I wonder how the coronavirus outbreak has impacted children with special needs, and what are appeals from their parents to the government?
The suspension of school and all the special childcare centers has really affected a lot of the SEN students and their parents. Many parents told us that they saw the functioning and development capacity of their children suffering some setback. Many of them have become not being able to learn self-care skills. Some of them have become more emotional or exhibit more behavioral problems. So it is extremely difficult, and especially for those who are looking at going into primary one in the coming September. They are really worried that first, whether they should be going on to special schools or to mainstream schools. Assessment that are usually done in March to determine what sort of schools they should be going to might not be the best time at this time because of the suspension of school. And so they really want more support services. When the epidemic subsides, they really want more training and more therapy so that they can catch up with the normal development.
Thank you. And the parents have sent out 4 major calls for the government. Can you tell us more detail?
The parents would like to see more support for training, rehabilitation, and therapy for their children. They understand that the current epidemic prohibits massive or social gathering. The resumption of limited center-based training is welcome, but they would like to see more resources to support them when the epidemic subsides, that they can use other services in the community so that they can catch up with the therapy prior to September, when they have to go on to the primary one education. They would also like to see some flexibility given for those who are going into primary one, that if they receive only very limited therapy and training at this time, they could be allowed to repeat at the special childcare center. Now, we understand that there's a long queue for special childcare center, so people who are waiting would also need the service as well. So we're looking at only allowing some exceptions. We're not asking that all children who are attending SCCC right now could be allowed to repeat.
I wonder how many children attending the SCCC have been impacted by the outbreak.
Oh, we're talking about thousands. Basically, at this time, all of the SCCC have stopped for the past month and a half. Now, starting today, and also other centers would be starting next week, these centers would reopen and provide service on a limited basis. Now, the one worry we have is that there is not sufficient protective gears, both for the providers and for the users, the children. For example, if we're looking at serving 6 children at the center per day, the therapist may have to change their protective gear 6 times. We are talking about not only surgical masks, but other protective gears such as PPE. Now, do we have sufficient supplies for them? That is highly questionable. So I have received concerns from the therapist and the other providers that when social welfare department asked the centers to reopen, who is responsible for providing sufficient gear for them and for the users as well. The other concern is about transportation. Some of these children and their carers have to travel from afar. Many of them live in the islands, really not Hong Kong Island, but other new territory islands. Their traveling time is long, and also they use different transportation, public transportation. So that also is putting them at risk. So a better transportation arrangement would help these resumption of center-based services.
So according to what you've just received from the panel, the information, what resources and what are actions that the government is trying to provide for these children and their parents?
Well, the government basically provided 2 rounds of subsidies to these centers for them to purchase supplies. But there's no guarantee that these centers are able to buy sufficient supplies. Other than that, there's only guidelines provided by the health department. There's really not much social welfare department is doing right now.
So the 2 rounds of subsidies, may I know the amount?
The first round is around $4,000. I'm not sure about the second round. I think it's about $2,000. But in all, I think it is rather insufficient, given the high prices of these protective gears at this time.
And are the protective gears sufficient according to the government?
No, the government does not have any data. But I heard directly from therapists and centers that they do not have sufficient supplies.
So you will work with the government in terms of following up with all these other measures, right?
Sure, absolutely. I would continue to chase after them.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
sure.
唔該晒，唔該晒，唔該晒。
好。
想問你啱啱話兩輪括號。
我分兩把先，你做親先。